welcome to this, and this is my review for the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view, which was tonight. And before I review the pay-per-view, let me just kind of set the stage for this pay-per-view in some ways. I'm sure most of you already know this. A lot of this is ancient history, even though it only happened a couple days ago, but most of you already know this. Raw lost, or I should say lost, but Raw got beaten in the ratings this week, because they're on the same night, from UFC's The Ultimate Fighter. This was Kimbo Slice's, the internet sensation's, first fight, last fight. Well, it won't be the last fight, because they're definitely going to bring him back, because he's been a huge rating draw for The Ultimate Fighter. This has been the biggest rated season. And his fight with Roy Nelson, and why Roy Nelson is even in The Ultimate Fighter, I have no idea. So I don't understand why he just wasn't, I don't know. But anyways, but this was Kimbo Slice's first fight. Won't be his last, even though he's lost. They'll definitely be bringing him back. But the fight was I believe, the most watched MMA fight, at least on Spike. I don't know about ever. I don't know if it beat some of Kimbo's fights on CBS. I wouldn't think so, but it may have been. And I believe it was the overall show did a higher rating than Raw did. So, and not by a little bit, by a pretty good margin. And Vince apparently went into a tirade, and they decided to change at least some of the pay-per-view around and at least some of the finishes. So we got that tonight. Now, if I was thinking, and if I was trying to guess, and I'm just saying, it's a logical guess, I would imagine so to try to get people more interested into Raw, even though, you know, Kimbo fighting on The Ultimate Fighter is something that, even if it happens again, might not happen to the season finale of The Ultimate Fighter, so you probably don't have to worry about it. It is kind of a fluky thing, you would imagine. Maybe more people will turn in to see what happens, maybe if he comes back. Who knows? I don't, but I'm just saying, who knows? But it would shock me if it happened again. But it does say something. I will say this, that, you know, apparently the two biggest draws currently, in the UFC would be Brock Lesnar, who was a pro wrestler and gets most of his name from being a pro wrestler, and Kimbo Slice, who got his name before he joined the Ultimate UFC. So I think it does kind of put a notch on the fact that UFC probably does need to do a little bit better. Even though they do a very good job, they still need to do a little bit better, probably, of making some of their stars and making some of their names, or at least trying to bring something to the table they haven't as of yet. And that's something a lot of people have been saying, myself included, for a while, so just to throw that out there. That said, no more UFC talk. But Vince apparently went a little nutty. They changed up some of the stuff on the pay-per-view, and that's all we got was this pay-per-view, which was not very good at all. Not because it didn't have good matches, but because basically the way it was set up, the way that they set the matches up. I think if you had done the matches in the complete opposite order, if you had done the complete opposite order to these matches, I honestly think you probably would have had a better pay-per-view. If you had started out instead of, because for those of you not knowing, CM Punk, and I'm sure most of you already know, CM Punk and The Undertaker were the opening match. That's right, one of your world titles was the opening match. Your main event was DX, or actually, I shouldn't say it was DX, it was Shawn getting the snot pummeled out of him, and then Triple H coming in and being Super Triple H. So, taking on Legacy. That's kind of what happened. So, if it was me, I would do that match, and then Kofi Kingston and The Miz and Jack Swagger, because by the end of the night, no one cared about that match. R-Truth versus Drew McNulty, I think is how it's spelled, or McNulty. Nitry? I can't remember. Drew. I can't remember how they want his name pronounced. Anyways, him making his pay-per-view debut. May have been his wrestling TV debut. I believe, maybe, but I don't think it was. Them were next, but because they were at the end of the card, it became a situation where the fans didn't care. John Cena versus Randy Orton in their match, because it just went on and on. Jericho, Big Show, Batista, and Ray. And then you could have done the women's match, and then the U.S. title match, and then CM Punk versus Undertaker. And I think if you just done that, just opposite, I think it would have been a better show. Myself, because I think it would have flowed a little bit better. Personally. Maybe I'm wrong, but hey, I think it would have been a little bit better myself. But anyways, let's go through these matches. CM Punk versus The Undertaker. And of course, as I said in my video before, talking about Hell in the Cell, there was no blood. I do think it hurt the matches. I think a lot of the matches, and I was Chase, Sea-Doo brought up an interesting point to me tonight, so I will reference him. Apparently, back the original Midnight Express, there's been 2 for those of you, well, 3, I guess 3 incarnations of the Midnight Express. But Dennis Coultry had, apparently the Midnight Express was talking to Vince McMahon. They'd gone up to New York, they were talking to Vince, and they were talking about the different styles. They were talking about the way that his guys wrestled as opposed to, the southern style that they were used to doing. And he pointed Dennis Coultry's head and said, "We don't do that here," his forehead, meaning we don't blade. And Dennis looked at him and said, "Well, how do you get heat?" Basically, how do you get heat if you're not blading? He was kind of curious. Now, there's ways to do it without blading, of course. But the point is that, at some point you do need to do, you got to give the fans a little bit of color sometimes to get your point across. And of course, WWE's not doing that now. When you have 3 cage matches, there's supposed to be these big, brutal, nasty cage matches, which is not what we got. You do need a little blood to emphasize the fact that they're big, brutal, nasty cage matches. And that's not what we got. So, but we start off with CM Punk versus The Undertaker. Yes, the world title at the beginning of the show, opening the show. I guess that's not, this isn't like, No Way Out where you had 2 elimination chambers. You needed to spread them out. That made a little bit more sense because you understood you needed to spread them out. But this is a little different, I would say. And but the match was good. It wasn't great. Undertaker definitely is hurting. You can tell. He hit CM Punk with a leg drop, which looked like it almost killed him. He limped pretty bad, leaving the ring. I don't know if taking the belt off Punk was a good decision. Maybe they'll give it back. But again, if the idea of this pay-per-view and switching the things up that they switched up was to get people interested in Raw, I don't see putting the belt on Undertaker making people interested in Raw. Maybe on SmackDown, maybe it might get more people into it. I wouldn't imagine so. Undertaker's been back for a while now, so, when you would have had Punk, main event, the last 2, the last 2 pay-per-views, I guess, or maybe the last 3 pay-per-views. Yeah, I guess the last 3 pay-per-views. So, there is that. So, then we had John Morrison versus Dolph Ziggler. I know a lot of people were looking pretty forward to this. The fans really didn't get into this until the end. I thought this was another pretty good match. They went out there. They kind of delivered. Definitely would like to see them put on some more matches. I really like the ending. I like the way they did the ending, and I think if they went out there and they did this a little bit more, maybe the fans would care a little bit more about it. Then we got Mickie James versus Alicia Fox, which was a pretty average match, not even for divas. This was actually just an average match. They went out there, they had one of the better divas matches in quite a while, I thought. Though Mickie hit her finish, and that looked bad. It looked like she almost killed Alicia. I mean, it was like, oh my god, that looked painful. Then we had Chris Jericho and the Big Show taking on Batista and Rey Mysterio. This was, without my doubt, the match of the night. I thought it was a very good match. Didn't think it was a great match, but thought it was very good. I thought they set up a lot of the spots well. Rey was flying around doing some wild stuff, and I thought the right team went over. I was glad to see that Chris Jericho and Big Show won, and it was very well done, and truly enjoyed that. Then we had John Cena and Randy Orton. This was a good, I guess, story. I'd say this is a good match, I guess. It went on forever, so it was kind of hard to tell. But they did do some interesting things. There was enjoyable parts of it. By the end of the probably the last little part of the match wasn't all that great. Then they had John Cena kind of no-sell the freaking, I shouldn't say no-sell, but, you know, he got punted in the head, and of course when you get punted in the head, it's supposed to be that you're out for, like, you know, at least a stretch of time. And John Cena basically woke up and was sitting there, and the phone's going off. And it was, yeah, it was just kind of weird. I don't know why they would come out with that myself. Then we had R-Truth and the R-Truth and Drew match, and that was okay. Wasn't anything great. The fans didn't care. You know, this was thrown on at the very last second. I don't know why they threw this on here, but maybe because the Undertaker couldn't go. I don't know. Maybe they needed time, but you know, oh well. Then we got Kofi Kingston, The Miz, and Jack Swagger. This was another kind of okay match that the fans just, I don't think, got into. There was some good spots, but nothing we hadn't really seen before. You know, that they, again, you know, if the idea is to be making new people or making, you know, new stars, they're not doing a great job of it. Because, you know, The Miz walks out, gets on the mic, gets over, they get him in the ring, and everything he did to get over, they took away because they just make him look like a goof. And then Jack Swagger has the tools, but it's just, my God, it seems like for every 2 steps he makes, the WWE makes some weird decision, or they do something where it's like 2 steps back. So it's like they're neutral. It's very strange to me. And we got the main event, DX versus Legacy. Or as I put in the description, Triple H versus the Legacy, because this was very. I don't even know why this was the main event. I have no idea. To me, if you were looking for that iconic moment for, you know, when the fans left, you couldn't have at least put, you know, Cena and Orton as the main event, and, you know, had that look when Cena, you know, got up from the punt and was looking and was looking at Orton, and Orton had that, you know, look of amazement and shock on his face. That couldn't have been, you know, the end of the pay-per-view. You had to be at, you know, DX celebrating. I mean, come the fuck on. Really? This is what we got? And the match told a nice story, but to be honest, it was good, but it was, you know, it wasn't a Hell in a Cell match. It was like a regular cage match. All of these matches were like regular cage matches, the Hell in the Cells. Even when they sparingly used the cage, this was kind of like, you know, Lockdown in a lot of ways, where, you know, every match is in the cage, but they don't always use the cages. It's kind of strange and weird, and you know, I thought the matches were good, but they were, you know, they weren't. This wasn't as good as it should have been, in my opinion. And, you know, I could understand CM Punk and Undertaker not, you know, them not maybe doing a lot of cage spots, doing a lot of stuff because they were going to save it for later on the other 2 matches. Or at least for the Cena and Orton match. But you have one match which is a tag match already, which is going to, you know, be a little bit different. You can, you know, maybe not make the, you know, I don't know. It just amazes me. It amazes me that there are people in the WWE that get paid to do this stuff, and this is the best they could come up with. And this is the match order they came up with. I mean, this was just so ridiculous, so bad, it wasn't funny. You know, and I'm not going to rip on Triple H. I really want to, but I'm not, because I know people, you know, bitch and whine when I rip on Triple H. But if at some point Triple H didn't look at it and go, why are we going on last? Something's wrong. That's something wrong. I mean, he's in a position where he can go, maybe we shouldn't go on last. But you know, the guy's smart enough. You know, you're telling me Shawn Michaels couldn't look at it and go, maybe this isn't a good deal. Maybe the Undertaker couldn't get it and go, I don't know about this. I mean, who's making these decisions? And are the wrestlers or the people that actually maybe have been around the business long enough, are they inputting? I mean, did Michael Hayes have anything to do with this? If he went along with this, blame goes to him too. Yeah, maybe he's booking SmackDown great, but if he went along with this garbage of putting these matches in this order, you know, I mean, look at the matches. I mean, there wasn't a bad match on this card. A lot of the matches were good. A lot of the matches were fairly good, but because of the way they were placed, people didn't give a damn. I mean, it just fell flat. You know, this is one of those pay-per-views which is, it's the pay-per-view is not as good as the sum of its parts. This is a pay-per-view that had a lot of good stuff on it, but as a pay-per-view as a whole, because of the way it flowed, it was just kind of like, you know, in my opinion. It was like, I could be doing something else. I'd be watching something else. This is just, wow. It pretty much, it just amazes me. I'm gonna go a 6.25. I'm not gonna go to a 6, but I'm gonna go with 6.25. This should have been, it just, you know, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of good stuff on here. If you got the DVD, you know, there's nothing bad on here. You could just skip around and watch, you know, and or whatever. Or if you made your own DVD, if you downloaded all the matches, you made your own DVD and put them in some sort of order where they were better, it would have been better. But this was just, I mean, wow, really? This is the best you come up with for a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view? You know, even if you take the blood thing out, this is the best you could come up with. One match which kind of uses the cage, and that's the tag match, which you even gimmick that by not even starting the match in the cage. You had them fighting outside for most of the time. You had this weird story where Triple H had to, you know, try to figure out a way to get in the cage. Like he couldn't go into the back and hit the button and lift the cage up. You know, I mean, come on. This is just wow. Wow. I mean, wow. Just wow. That's all I can say. I mean, like I said, the matches themselves were fairly good. If they had been in some sort of reasonable order, which would have stuff would have flowed better. This would have been a much better pay-per-view. But as it stands, it's not a very good pay-per-view at all. So there we go. At least in my opinion, I didn't enjoy it that much. So just because of that, I enjoyed the matches. I just didn't enjoy the pay-per-view. I you know, just whatever. Anyways, with that, I'm out. Like I said, if the idea of this pay-per-view was to get people to watch Raw, you know, then this failed on all sorts of huge levels, I would say. I would say TNA has had pay-per-views which do a better job of selling Impact than this does. Now some of those pay-per-views weren't better than this, I will freely say, but come on. Jeez. With that, I'm out.